This is Kessben 93.3 FM, a new wave of excellence in radio.
Na ababe ensem no bebre ma me kwa homa ne so bia mo emra ansa na ma involve me two ICs no ma me ne nia be ma Edem Senanu eni enkomo anti-corruption campaign na me misa ne say with the currents of ranking na yenya no, what is Ghana's position in terms of our fight against corruption? Edem, if you can hear me, good morning and thank you for your time.
And thank you for having me.
Okay, so first of all, the argument or the debate is about the comparison between John Mahama and then Nana Akufo-Addo's regime, and then vis-a-vis who has done better with the fight against corruption. With Ghana's current rating, what is Ghana's strength when it comes to the fight against corruption?
Well, Ghana is below the pass mark. We're below average. The pass mark is 50. So the first thing we can note is that neither of these presidents has gotten us past the pass mark, and that already is sad news. Having said that, we've also not made any progress in the last 2 years. We're still at 43, so we've stagnated, which means that, any time we seriously put effort into dealing with corruption, you see a rise.
Okay.
So the fact that we haven't made any, and I say you are marking time, it just means that you've not been serious enough about fighting corruption. As simple as that. So certainly in the last years, we haven't. And unfortunately, that just puts us nowhere, because if in 2016 especially, the elections was fought on the back of corruption, and yet since then we've not seen that significant change. It tells you that perhaps the political will to contend with this hydra-headed thing and to deal with it fully is not there at the moment. And so the citizen and the other arms of government that ought to be dealing with this will have to work extremely hard if we are to see any change or improvement.
Now, how hard should the citizens work? Because now you are told again in the face that corruption and its fight and then other related issues will have to be dealt with based on institutions that have been built. Now, this regime tells you that they've put in place a lot of measures. They've established the institutions to cater for the fight against corruption. And so how then again do we come back to this same position?
Okay, so there are a number of things. One of the key findings, you find that the Transparency International report makes some recommendations. And one of those recommendations has to do with the independence of institutions supposed to check graft. Such institutions need to be made as independent as possible to be effective. And that's one of the challenges in Ghana. Our constitution empowers the executive to select and appoint the leaders of Yoko, Charge, and what have you. And what it means is that there's a certain extent to which these leaders may have been compromised. There are people who would stand up against their own appointment authority, but that is more likely the exception than the rule. There's a certain kind of affiliation, or you think you must do your appointer's bidding. It's one of the very key things we need to address, and that requires a constitutional reform. We need to take away the excessive executive power, so that then when people rise up through the ranks as a matter of competency and they get to the top and they are professionals, that combined experience, professionalism, competency will enable them prosecute the agenda and mandate of the institutions they had for the purpose of promoting the public good, and not because they have any interest or are influenced by any politician. So that's a very important thing. If we are not doing it, it doesn't matter if the president and the government have put in place the institutions to the extent that those institutions are being headed by persons who may be their own party people, who may be people of interest, then you're not going to get the results you want. Now, beyond that, when we talk about citizenry, it's also about the level of empowerment of the citizens.
Okay.
If you don't fully understand the issues of conflict of interest, if you don't fully understand the retrogression we experience when one contractor uses poor material to build a school or to build a road, the accidents and the children who struggle. If you don't understand the right you have to question and to even do citizens arrest, then the likelihood is that your posture will be, this does not affect me, does not affect my family. Let me focus on my the small I'll get every day and survive, rather than talk about this. And I am strongly suggesting that it's a lack of public education. It's a lack of proper resourcing of the National Commission for Civic Education to the extent that citizens can understand their obligations, which include monitoring and holding accountable duty bearers at all levels of government. There are some of us who've been to school, so we understand the issues.
Yeah.
But the majority of Ghanaians, probably another 40-60%, who don't understand issues.
Yes, but how would the understanding of the issues contribute to this if the main actors on the corridor of power do not have that political will to deal with the issues?
So you see, here's the thing: in countries where, and even in small societies where the individual, let's say the fundamental unit of the group of the community, have that strong capacity to speak up and say you are doing the wrong thing, and they will have many others working and working with them to form a critical mass of voice. Leaders are more cautious. Indeed, in some of my leadership training sessions, we have this formula where we say effective leadership is a function of the leader who listens, the leader who has experience and exposure, and followers who ask critical questions and give critical input. Now, in a lot of the jurisdictions where we are not performing well, that part of the formula F, what that deals with the followers who surround the leader, the followers who are supposed to either give critical input or ask critical questions. They are not asking critical questions. That's why we say they give full respect.
No, but it's the case, because I see your very self, and then your organization, the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. Somewhere last year, we saw a rise in terms of advocacy for, fix the country, among many others. These are issues that are being raised every time, especially when the Auditor General has done his report and then submitted it to the Public Accounts Committee and all of that. So what else do we need to do for the leadership of this country listen and probably resolve the issues that has to do with corruption?
I think that we need to be more persistent and perseverant. I mean, in recent days, each time I've been asked this question, I've told people that, look, if we take last year's Auditor General report, it tells you sector by sector the amount of money lost to the tune of billions. We need to tell our president, call your ministers, tell each sector, your sector, we lost 1.2 billion Ghana cedis. I'm giving you a target of 50% reduction by the next Auditor General's report. You minister, that's your, otherwise you don't deserve to have that position. Go and call the directors in your sub-units. Point out to them the level of graft that was found in their units. They also would not deserve to be still in their positions in the end of 12 months if they don't cut this down for at least 50%. Over a 3-year period, we start with 50%, go to 25%. In a 3-year period, we will totally minimize the law. We need to be clinical and systematic.
Yes, but that is when the president has the political will to give out such directives and instructions.
Yeah, but you are
if the
assuming
commitment is not there, what do we do next?
No, you are assuming that and so let me talk about this from probably a citizen government engagement framework, or let's say accountability, where or rights-based advocacy. You see, whenever you have a situation where the people around you are more silent about particular issues, there's no incentive or sanction incentive to make a change. But when people all of a sudden do a hue and cry over something, you are compelled to. So if you take a Jaffa, when the hue and cry got a certain, everybody was like, hey, there's a change. Okay? Or take two levy. And that is the value of increased voice. You see, sometimes we don't recognize that we have the power. The power actually belongs to the people. Article 1.1, Article 35.1, they all demonstrate that ultimately we repose power in the government. If we, the citizens, enough of us begin to speak up, and on all radio platforms and TV, everybody is talking about an issue, suddenly, political will that seems not to be there will be found. And that's the point. Enough, and that's where, if you don't do enough civic education, that people know that you need to govern his voice and sustain that voice over a period, over a particular issue. To get, I mean, if you take the fix the country thing, I think that perhaps the issues were diverse and not dense. And so, because they were scattered, different issues, you know, fix the country covered probably several issues. So, it was not so focused on one or two issues. We are saying, we want this resolved now.
Okay.
Because when we are able to push that, like we are saying, e-levy, this thing, we are not happy about it. Government is forced that. Or toll-levy was scrapped. They could never be implemented. In Japan, when they said they'll come back, but you get my point. It's simply about how many of us see this as an issue, all saying it, because then it goes through the grapevine. The party people themselves say this. If you try it, all of us, we are not happy. That is the citizens' power. Enough of us understand the issues and say that this thing is dangerous for Ghana. This thing is not working for Ghana. So if enough citizens understood that, look, the thievery and the fraud is happening in ministries. And those ministries have ministers. And the ministers have an overall chief minister who is the president. So if we also ask him as the president, but this thing we don't understand. Call your ministers, all these press conferences we are running. Call them, sit around the table, take their paper, call Minister of Food and Agriculture, give him his figure, give him his target, do it on live TV. You know, and if all of us are saying the same thing, if we educate enough people say about this thing that every year they're not seeing a change, it either means you are condoning it or you're embracing it. And the formula for dealing with it is just be clinical. You know where it is happening because the Auditor General report is telling us where the thievery is happening. We know those in which sectors, which subunits, which departments. So why are we not taking the actions? You know, if you had enough citizens talking about just one thing over a period, all of a sudden you will find that the president has no choice. That's the point I'm making, that, look, between media and the citizens, the power. The question is, how do we focus it so we are taking it an issue at a time? Because when there are several issues, or say don't mind them, they'll talk after a while, they'll stop. After 2 weeks, this thing is dead news. That's how this. But we need to be more focused in setting the agenda. We're able to do that. We will see that the politician and the elite who tend to attempt to just make sure that they line their pockets at the expense of the public good do not find the space to go to do that comfortably.
Now, you indicated that under Nanado's regime, for the last 2 years, consistently, we've scored 43. Do we still have some level of confidence under him, especially within the second term, to initiate other measures that will help curb the corruption we are seeing? Because they tell you again that the institutions are being put up. And so once that is done, you don't expect the president to go sit in those offices and do what is needful of those that has been appointed. Now, what should be the way forward for us as a country?
Okay, so I think that the two things I've heard in your question. First, do we have confidence? And I'll say I have very mixed feelings about it. I know that, and I say so for good reason. Look, engagements that we've had as the Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition, where we've had opportunity to engage the president together with key ministers in the past, in the first term. They have debates over issues where when the president speaks, I find that this is a man who is very intelligent, who has independent opinion, and is capable of taking actions if he's well informed. And I worry that, and I think this is a thing that all leaders should watch out for. And I just mentioned the same thing in the formula. Who are you surrounding yourself with, and what are they telling you?
Okay.
Because right there, I remember occasions where he disagreed with the Minister for Justice when we were trying to chase the RTI, and it had taken a long time, and we asked, and then she was speaking, and then and the president just said, taking you for a target. Tell them by the end of the day, you have this, and tell them that those. And so indirectly, he said that for her, and she repeated it to us. And there've been about 3 or so where, right there in the meeting, you realize the president is getting abreast on an issue, and he's influencing his minister to be more proactive by right there and there saying, but this just take the decision. So I've sat back and told myself, that's our governance architecture. Allow our presidents, and I say so because as committed Ghanaian, as someone who is passionate about seeing development in this nation, I'm clear in my mind that sometimes it is not because we did not have the quality of presidential material we needed, but the architecture to help the person to deliver. And in that sense, it doesn't matter if we have a new political party bringing in another candidate. If that architecture does not serve to give our president the right information, they will not take the actions we expect. So I'm highlighting one aspect of it where who surrounds the president, what information are they given? If to the extent that when civil society engaged, there was new information that led our president to ask for certain actions, it means that he didn't have that information previously without our presence.
And do you see that deliberate, that they do not brief the president on certain things that are happening in the country?
It could very well be deliberate. But you are absolutely right. That is my fear. That is my fear. And that is how they can make presidents ineffective by not giving them. I mean, there are times where I can remember where I had to argue with some of the ministers over an issue. I remember there was a tall issue where the president asked, so why are you not happy? So what issues are you not happy about? And I started with Paul, that whole issue of setting up a multi-stakeholder committee to investigate. Then a few weeks they suddenly said, BNI, they set up a BNI, and so they are dissolving the multi-stakeholder. I said the optics were bad, and it sent the wrong message to the citizens. The multi-stakeholder committee had professionals. So you look at it and say that, oh, these people, they cross board. So they are more likely to come out for objective question in their report. Then suddenly we went for a solely BNI. And we know again that BNI is an institution of state whose leadership are also definitely appointed by the president, the political party, or the government of the day. So I said that was bad. Immediately, some ministers said, no. The BNI committee was already in existence. It was rather a mistake to have set up the multi-stakeholder. And I was wondering, were we all not in Ghana? How come none of us knew about this BNI, and which one is in the best interest? In that instance again, the president spoke up and said, when things like this happen, we're not happy. So I understand what this young man is, these people are saying. I mean, so I reflect and say, and I look back at other government and other presidents, I tell myself, if we're not careful, we may continue having this fight because the architecture and the people around them, they are making our presidents ineffective. So that's one point. That's one point about how moving ahead is without getting the right people around the president and getting the president informed. And I think that there's a chief of staff and that machinery that ought to ensure that at all times monitoring of ministers is being done and the right type of information is getting to the president.
Okay.
That architecture needs to be addressed. But again, we say that strong leadership must go with strong institutions. So it is not sufficient for us to say we put the institutions in place. The question is, do those institutions also have strong leaders? Strong leaders who have the capacity to deliver on their mandate because they have an institution that has all the structures in place. So, I mean, if you take someone like Madinamidu, the institution hadn't yet grown if you talk about OSP, but you are a strong leader of whom we had great expectations. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, he didn't deliver. But then you've had strong institutions with strong leadership. We see great results. So let's not say we set the institutions and then go and appoint people who probably are not that driven by delivering on the mandate, and then you get a mediocre result and we just out that we've done the institutions. No, it is never about just the institutions. You also need strong leadership that is able to drive to man those institutions so that we get the results that Ghanaians deserve. So those are my thoughts.
Edem, thank you very much. I'm grateful.
And thank you for having me.
Okay. And Edem said no, and many no Edin Komono, one anti-corruption campaign na akoyensim be co-chair Edema Citizens Movement Against Corruption. A Komono in has to do with corruption.